You have to truly believe in the magic.
What's up, Magic fans, and welcome to this week's episode of Penny for Your Thoughts, the Orlando Magic UK podcast. Today is Friday, the 12th of May, 2023. If you're watching us on YouTube, you'll see, unfortunately, Paul's not with us again this week. He's been called away to do some last-minute homework, and he's also not going to be with us for the next couple of weeks because he's off to a big gig, boys, isn't he? I can't remember who's going to watch now. Is it
Def Leppard?
Def Leppard?
That's the one, yeah.
So he's going to be enjoying himself for the next few weeks. So he is still with us, but hopefully we'll have Paul back on the pod soon. But I'm still joined by the Welsh Kuzma. Evening, G.
You got to drop that.
Hey, it wasn't me that brought that one up.
No, I know. No, I'm good, thank you, mate. Yeah, end of the week, so a couple of days now to the lottery. So exciting times.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. Gary, how are you, mate?
All the better for seeing your two smiling faces on a Friday night. There's some charm for you from the north. How are you, mate?
So, doing well, mate. It's been a busy week. We're having a bit of a freestyle episode tonight. There's not been a lot of prep, which you may find out why later on, or maybe you won't. We'll dive into that shortly. But boys, you said about the draft lottery on Tuesday night. How are you boys feeling about it?
I'm a little bit concerned that every time I go to Tankathon, we end up within the top 1, 2, 3, and I feel like I'm using up all of our luck. And then I see, shows like the Six Man Show and various other people on Twitter, and they're posting the same ones. Even our friends at Houston Rockets UK keeps doing a daily Tankathon, and we often come out quite well. So as long as we've got a little bit of luck for Tuesday night, I'm good. And of course, be good to keep that Chicago pick also.
Gary?
Luck is what it is. It's a spin of a layer. It is what it is. And whatever will be, it's out of my control and it's out of all of our control. And we'll just see what happens. I'm comfortable with the future of the team and the front office regardless, but it would be lovely to get the first pick.
Before Tuesday, Mikey, have you paid your internet bill this year? Because hopefully you'll have the same reaction times as us this year round.
I wouldn't bank on it, mate. I'm going to be honest. I live in the middle of nowhere, so although my internet speed's really fast, it's obviously still behind the times of everybody else who lives in the normal world. So
yeah, you didn't have electric yesterday, did you?
No, that's back on, as you can tell. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this. But yeah, I mean, me and Gary talked about the draft lottery earlier on, didn't we, mate? When you gave me a quick call, and obviously the Magic got a 9% chance at number 1, a 9.2 chance at number 2, a 9.4 chance for the number 3 pick, a 9.6% chance at number 4. They can't land the 5th pick, and then it goes to 8.6% for the 6th pick. The highest odds is the 7th pick with 29.7%, 20.6% for the 8th pick, and then it drops for 9 and 10. And the Magic can't drop to any lower than 11, which would be horrendous if we finish 10th. But I said to Gary earlier when I was having a look over the last 4 or 5 years, the teams that have landed with the 6th worst odds have always come out at 6 or 7 over the last few years. So for me, my mindset going into Tuesday is if we land with 6 or 7, then that's what I'm sort of setting myself up for. Yeah. If we get a top 4 pick, then we'll all be ecstatic, and it doesn't matter where in the top 4. I mean, it'd be great to get number 1 or 2 and have a shout at Wemby or Scoot, but the top 4 pick, based on the odds from the last few years and the way the lottery's played out, if you get into the top 4, fantastic. But if we land 6 or 7, that's what I think is going to happen. But we'll see. Yeah, I'm not nervous though. I don't know about you guys. It's going to be whatever it is, really, isn't it?
Yeah, like what Gary just said. You know, can't do anything about it. It's a lottery. The odds are set, you know. And like, I mean, I mentioned, you know, how many times I'm pressing and getting Orlando in the top 3, but that makes no odds. Fresh slate on Tuesday night, and
Gee, I've got a question. I've got a question for you, actually, like a hypothetical. Me and Mikey kind of chatted this up earlier, and it's putting you on the spot. But like, as the chairman of the Markel Fultz Appreciation Society,
I'm not trading him.
That's not my question. My question is, in light of this, if the Magic landed the number 2 pick, what would you do?
You draft the best player available.
Who's that?
Well, unfortunately, I don't get to watch the the college scene in the States, so I'm going on what the media is saying once more. And if that is Scoot, then I think we should draft him. And then what we do with him or with whoever else, then it is what it is. End of the day, it's the name on the front of the jersey that's the most important. And we want to get a couple of rings, don't we, with Paolo and whoever else is on the roster. But I am very much Team Markel, as everybody knows. So no, just get the best player available.
It's an interesting one, because I know that me and Mikey, we chatted this earlier, and we just said that whereas Henderson looks a great prospect, the backcourt, the way it's set up and the way the team's set up, looking at him statistically, because we don't really watch that level of NCAA, etc., and G League, he doesn't look as though he would fit great alongside Suggs or Fultz right now.
That's fair.
It's a real conundrum for me. I've seen a couple of mocks where Detroit land second, and the analysts have got them taking Brandon Miller with the second pick because of the Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey backcourt and what Miller would bring to the team, given in mind what they've got Jalen Duren, James Wiseman, etc., where he would fit. So I thought I would ask you, because it puts a real interest in, how can I put it? It throws a cat amongst the pigeons of our backcourt if we ended up drafting Scoot Henderson, who's in some drafts people would put him, if Wembanyama wasn't there, as number 1, unquestionably. So just thought I would ask. Sorry for putting you on the spot, mate.
No, no, it's fine, mate. It's fine. No, it's an interesting scenario, isn't it? But I think draft the best available, and the more assets you have, the more you can do with them, isn't it?
And it's a similar conversation with Wendell. You guys know I'm Team Wendell. It's the same if you get Wembanyama, isn't it? Then that's already sort of, you already know the path forward from that point. You know that Wemby's the centre of the future if that's who you end up landing. But anyway, this is part of the reason why we haven't talked prospects, because it is all irrelevant until Tuesday night when we know where we're going to pick. So over the next few weeks, we're going to start breaking down different prospects. If we land number 1, we only need to break down 1 prospect. If it's number 2 or lower, then we've got a lot of work to do. So diving into quick plugs for you guys. Don't forget that Saturday the 15th of July, we're having our very first Orlando Magic UK Meetup. Is it our first? G? We've done London games a couple of times.
We did. 2016, wasn't it?
But I guess this is just Magic fans. No, nothing else going on. No NBA game to draw people in. We're just going out for a curry, going out for some beers. I don't know if we're going to have a little bit of basketball play. We're hoping to, G, aren't we?
Some people are very keen, so we may well.
But if you want to join us, I've read a message. I don't know if Tom Sohn messaged us on Twitter to say he's coming with a few other people as well, and I think we're already up to a good 15-20 people going. 15,
and Gary Clark is now confirmed.
Yeah.
So the legend that is Gary Clark. So I'm looking forward to meeting him for the first time. I know you guys have had the privilege out in Orlando in October. So looking forward to having a few beers with Gary.
Yeah. Come along. Does Gary Clark?
He likes salt, Gary.
He likes an Everglazed donut, I can confirm.
He also likes Gideon's.
Well, everybody likes Gideon's.
Well, somebody missed out on his opportunity, didn't he? When he was there in January.
Somebody, the diabetic did miss out on the opportunity. So no, I shall try and right that wrong. Hopefully next year now.
Well, it's not too late. If you want to join us on the 15th of July, just reach out, send us a DM on Twitter or Facebook or anywhere else like that, and we'll give you the details of that. And one other thing, Tuesday the 16th of May, this coming Tuesday, we've got the NBA Draft Lottery. We're hosting our live watch party on Zoom from midnight. If you want to join us, I know people have been having problems signing up on the website. If you have, just send us a DM on social media, and we'll send all the Zoom details to you for Tuesday night as well. And yeah, that's that. So on today's episode, we're going to talk about the Orlando Magic and what we think they should do this off-season. Paolo Banchero winning another award, and our thoughts on a proposed trade idea that went a bit viral this week amongst Magic fans. But before that, Paolo Banchero was this week named All-Rookie First Team. I don't think there's any real surprises there, boys.
No, none at all.
He's Rookie of the Year.
Rookie of the Year. Also alongside him was Walker Kessler of the Utah Jazz, Benedict Mathurin of the Indiana Pacers, Keegan Murray of the Sacramento Kings, and Jalen Williams of OKC. Any arguments for the other four?
Not really, no. They're all quite worthy of it. I did like the fact that, and there was a message put in our WhatsApp group this morning, and Gary sent it in, that we found out who didn't give Jalen Williams the first team vote, and that was our very own Dennis Scott, Magic legend. So he wasn't unanimous, which was quite funny, and it's caused a bit of a stir with the OKC fans who are now hating on 3D. Wasn't that right, Gary?
It was, but you know what? Like, I don't agree. I do think he deserves to be on the all first team NBA. But I've got to admit, when I first saw that news, I started laughing because I just went, "Here we go again! Here we go again!" And this like Oklahoma City Orlando kickoff, which shouldn't really be happening because the Thunder are hard to dislike, if we're being honest. And I think we all know a Thunder fan that we like. G certainly does, and I kind of sat there, but I did burst out laughing when I saw it because I was just like, I'm going to look at the comments now, and I'm going to predict that there's just a form going on in them, and there was. The only person I think where you would say that they're going to feel a little bit aggrieved is Ivy in the Pistons, who I think's a legitimate talent, but it's which one of those guys do you leave out? Because Williams is a certainty for me. I think Keegan Murray's a certainty for me. Walker Kessler. So it's, do you leave out Mathurin? That would be really harsh if it was the other way around. So yeah, it's fair. It's fair, I think. But I burst out laughing, and I was like straight to the comments section and just sitting there having my breakfast, laughing away, as I do as a bitter man.
It's a fair shout about Jaden Ivey, but it's hard to argue against the other four, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. One bit of news that I hadn't come across this week, or it certainly went under the radar, and you guys didn't know about this. There was a tweet by Kobe Price, I think it was a few days ago, in relation to Pat Williams trying to get a MLB team or an expansion team set up in Orlando. And one of the tweets from Kobe Price actually said that the Magic are looking to invest or spend $256 million to renovate the Amway Center, which you guys were a bit surprised about.
You know, if they've got that much money to spare, they could send us $1 million each, really, couldn't they?
Yeah, I was quite surprised at that. You know, it's a state-of-the-art facility, and one that a lot of people have said is that, you know, one of the best in the league. Obviously, there's a couple more arenas popped up in recent years, but to hear about, you know, cracked seats, logos falling off, that sort of things. It's not something I've seen. I thought it was a pretty secure facility, and that's a lot of money, and I'm sure you could do a lot with that sort of money, like Gary suggested. But if that's what it needs doing, fair play to the DeVos family for putting their hand in their pocket and sorting it out, because if you want to be attracting free agents, I know it's they don't sit in the seats, but you want the best facilities. They've already got the best practice facility. You just want everything to be tip top, don't you?
Well, firstly, if the number on my front door's looking a little bit crooked now, I come to think about it. So if the DeVos family want to pay $1 million for me to straighten that up, it's all good. I would say that when these stadia and arenas start to get away from you and decline, they can decay quick. I've seen that with football, where what looks to be just small cosmetic things, one season you come back and then it just looks terrible out of seemingly nowhere. So maybe the Magic have just thought, you know what, we need to be on top of things. We're coming into the kingdom on the rise, Mikey, as we were talking about this morning. And we don't want it to look bad for when we become good. But it's a hell of a lot of money, because you would imagine that you could practically build a new arena for something around that. Not to that state, but it's a lot of money. Fair play to them if they are.
Yeah, but yeah, we're all a bit surprised about that news. But and any thoughts on a potential MLB team? It's not something I follow baseball. I know you're more into it, G.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the Tampa Bay Rays, or what was the Devil Rays, and I really like the branding and the team name. I'm gonna struggle if it's the Orlando Dreamers. That's a bit of a hard sell, but obviously any Orlando team you're gonna go with. It's just a shame, if they did move to Orlando from Tampa, can't they just be the Orlando Rays and keep all the sort of merch that comes with that franchise? They're a very well-run organization down in Tampa, obviously playing in a division. We've got the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox, who throw money at any sort of free agent, well over the cap every season. So to be competitive in that division, and I think they won their 30th game, first team to win 30 games this season when they beat the Yankees last night. It's not something I've seen live, but obviously I try and keep an eye out in the summer and when it comes to the postseason. But no, if we got a MLB team in Orlando, and the talk I think Mikey's down on iDrive, but south of iDrive by SeaWorld and Aquatica, and the facility they want to build looks pretty good, to be honest with you. I'm not going to scoff at the idea to be able to go down and watch a baseball game on a night the Magic aren't playing. I'll happily go. Just have to get clearance from the wife.
Well, I think I said to you earlier, G, I was watching Adam the Woo on YouTube. I think it was yesterday or the day before, and he actually did a video. He went and visited or had a little walk around the potential site up on iDrive, like G said. I think it's right next to Aquatica, right off of iDrive, and off on one of the other, is it the 5-2? I can't remember now. There's too many roads to remember over there. But yeah, he gave it basically a full breakdown, and he said, or what he found out, and I don't know how true this is, that whilst the Rays are still in Tampa Bay, there isn't a chance there's going to be a team in Orlando. If the Rays were to relocate from Tampa, I think Orlando would look to rehome them, or if the Rays went further afield and went somewhere else, then that would open up the opportunity for Orlando to then have an expansion team. From what I understand, that's how it's going to work, but it's all pie in the sky at the moment, isn't it? It's all just proposals and ideas at the moment being thrown around, so we'll see. Something else to talk about. And then this one's going to rile G up this evening. There was a chap called Simon Rath on Twitter. Was it yesterday or Wednesday? He proposed a trade, an idea of moving Markelle Fultz and Jonathan Isaac to the Golden State Warriors for Jordan Poole. Now, I don't know who tweeted it. I could probably guess. Somebody tweeted a message from our account going, absolute nonsense. Was it Geraint?
I can't even remember if it was me or not.
wasn't
Yeah, it was
me.
actually. No, it was me. It was me. Yeah, just absolute nonsense, like I just said. Okay, so first and foremost is Markel Fultz and Jonathan Isaac, and I get, you need to do a salary match, etc. But this is coming after Jordan Poole had a very poor game for Golden State in the playoffs. He just went missing, didn't shoot the ball very well. And all of a sudden, they're looking at, well, who could we get for him? And all of a sudden, Markel Fultz he's a good player all of a sudden. Nobody's given him any sort of love prior to this, have they? Everyone's thought he was, washed, he was broken, whatever else. Just inconceivable. But why would we do that? Why would we do that? It's these fair weather fans who don't actually, watch the game properly and consider both teams' needs, isn't it? Jordan Poole's a good player, don't get me wrong, but he's just a shooter, really. Give me Fultz every day. How about you guys? Mikey, what do you think?
I think it was laughable. I mean, I don't understand how Markel Fultz was fit with the Golden State Warriors any better than Jordan Poole does, for a start, if you're looking at it from the other point of view. Why would they want Jonathan Isaac, who doesn't play? Yeah. I just wanted to see you riled up tonight, G, that was all.
Well, I calmed down because it was a couple of days ago, wasn't it? But now you mention it again. Don't mention the war.
I think it's probably a fair trade when we draft Scoot Henderson. No, I think
you've been lining this up, haven't you two? That's what you've been doing from the offset.
I think in all seriousness, the trade that would make more sense, and I'm probably going to get Golden State fans and Minnesota fans coming at me for this, but I saw one proposed, which was Jordan Poole and Rudy Gobert for the centerpieces. And I think when you look at maybe how the Warriors have been, and you look at where the situation the Wolves have put themselves in, depending on what went where, that might be something, because it wouldn't just be straight up. But Gobert, possibly for them, would actually work, because you could just put him in the middle and surround him with the shooting of other guys. And that made more sense from that angle, because I think with the way the Warriors are set up, when you look at, say, Draymond Green in the team, as soon as you put Draymond in there, you kind of have to think about what else is around them. And they've been a bit exposed. And I think this situation with Jordan Poole and Draymond Green, there's something not right. They don't look the same team, and it's going to be something that's questioned whether that's the factor or not. But when you look at them from last season to this season, they just don't look. Maybe it's age, maybe they've been together too long, maybe it's chemistry, but there's just something not quite there at the minute. And when you look
I think they're very thin in the front court. You got Kevon Looney.
Mm-hmm.
Fair play. He's been, balling out. He's been grabbing rebounds. He's played very well in these playoffs, but they haven't got anybody to come in for him, have they?
But for a team that prides itself on great coaching, and I'm not dismissing Steve Kerr here at all, but James Wiseman's been given away practically. They gave him away, and whatever you say, whether he was ready or not, it hasn't worked. They've given up on him, and then they've got Jonathan Kuminga sat there, who everybody raves about as a talent, but he's not seeing minutes, so therefore he's not ready for this. And it's year 2. And if you've gone back to the draft and looked at all the mock-ups, nobody in their right mind had Wagner ahead of Kuminga. So do you think Franz Wagner would be seeing minutes now in that series? You know what I mean? So that the development, I know it's 2 totally different teams and you can't get your mistakes, but when you look at how thin that front court is, and you look at the size of Kuminga and you look at the size of Wiseman, something just isn't right. with Golden State, and I want Golden State to do fairly well because apart from Draymond, they're quite likable. But you're looking at Jordan Poole, like me and Mikey had a quick chat earlier on today, and Jordan Poole looks like he's having one of those series which people then pick up in the media and start doing a Ben Simmons demolition job on them. If they go out and Poole has these numbers and these shooting stats, Jordan Poole's under a microscope given his contract and his profile and what happened earlier in the season.
The thing is, you're right about them. There isn't something right there. Something's not right. But you think of those championship teams of a few years ago when they had, you think back to when this dynasty really started, when Andrew Bogut was one of their big men. JaVale McGee was a big man.
Zaza Pachulia.
Do you know what I mean? They had depth at the front court there. Draymond comes out. Looney's not mobile enough to switch and guard players on the perimeter like Draymond can. Let's be honest. They're getting older, aren't they? They're Clay and Steph and Draymond. They're all in their mid-30s. It is that their run is coming to an end. Whether it's now, whether it's next season, it's they've got to reinvent themselves a little bit more. And like you said, Gary, they drafted Kuminga with high hopes that he was gonna. Would you say fill that Andrew Wiggins role? Is that unfair? But do you not think that's where they sort of had an idea on him playing in that system for them, and he's just not really. I mean, Moses Moody, who was drafted after him, is much more ready-made for the Warriors than Kuminga.
But when you look at if you looked at the Sunnyside story last season of it all, when it was like everything's rosy, the people were saying, well, okay, Steph's getting older, Clay's getting older, Draymond's getting older, but being brought into the Warriors culture, you had Jordan Poole, who was totally breaking out. You had Moses Moody, who was being talked about as high as like the 8th pick to us. We were being linked with him and James Bouknight, Jonathan Kuminga, and James Wiseman. So there was all this talk of this Warriors youth movement who were ready to come in and take the reins. And we're not saying that's not going to happen, but it's just one's gone, one's having a nightmare series, and the other two are barely featuring. It's just weird.
And while we're on the subject, I said to you we're going to freestyle tonight and go with it. You said about the other trade that made more sense with Gobert. Mm-hmm. If you're the Timberwolves, I don't know what you're going to get for Gobert. I don't even think you're going to get Jordan Poole.
But you're stuck with him. It's an awful contract.
I mean, the Timberwolves have really stuck themselves in a corner, haven't they, with that move? I mean, you could argue them moving Cat would give them a bit more draft capital or a little bit more flexibility to bring in a couple more players that could make a bigger impact on that team. Than I don't know. If they didn't have Anthony Edwards, their future looks pretty bleak at the moment, doesn't it?
Well, I'll be honest. Would you want Cat as a centerpiece of your team?
No. I've said for several years, I just don't think Cat's a winning player. I think he's a really, really good player. He's very, very talented, but I don't think he does enough to move the needle on a winning team. I really don't. So there we go. But yeah, I thought we'd get G's blood pressure up a little bit with that chat. But the main topic. That's all right, good lad. The main topic I want to jump onto tonight, because obviously Tuesday night's a big deal with the draft lottery. Then we're 5 weeks away from the draft itself, and then straight into free agency. I want to know, how would you like to see the front office approach this off-season? So I think we all feel fairly optimistic the Magic have got a good chance of being a playoff team next year. At the very least, a play-in team. So with the lottery ahead, with the draft coming up, you got the possibility of trades, free agency. How would you like Jeff and John to approach this off-season? Gary?
It looks like G wants to go in first, so I'm going to let.
No, I'll let you go first. I was going to give you a first chance this time.
If I was them, how would I like or how would I like them to do it, Mikey?
How would you like them to do it?
Right, I wouldn't get rid of anyone really, unless it was a freeing up roster space. I'd see where the ping pong balls land. I'd see what our pick is. I'd see what the Bulls pick is. Unless I got an offer that blew me away, I wouldn't be actively looking to trade them picks. But at the same point in time, depending on what the picks are, we're the ones answering the phone, not picking up the phone, put it that way. And I would keep it as it is. I would let the players develop. I would make sure that every decision I make is based around Franz and Paolo. And those are your two building blocks. I would make sure that anything that was needed in terms of rehab facilities in that wonderful practice facility we've got is there. And I know we spoke about this earlier, Mikey, but we've come this far with Jonathan Isaac. It's not a repeat injury. I would stick with it because we saw the influence even in limited minutes that Jonathan Isaac had on wins. So if Jonathan Isaac's going to be fit, and it's a massive if, it is a huge if, but we're this far down the road, unless something like winning the lottery where Wembanyama comes in, which would change the conversation, I would stick with what we've got. Obviously, if we get Wembanyama, I would say then Isaac becomes expendable and something might happen from there. But going along the lines of picking between 4 and say 7 or 8, I would see what we can get. And I think the draft can land us in at least one of our 2 spots, a good shooter, which would spread the floor. And that's
You got anyone in mind, Gary?
I don't want to be a dick about things, G. I said Grady Dick might be a good pickup.
You're going to get his jersey even if we don't draft him, aren't you?
It's going to be that blue star print jersey. If that's the truth, it's going to be. There's going to be me, you, and Mikey all in our Dick and Boner jerseys. Just which one are you going to go for? Our Bagsy Dick. Are you all over Dick G or not?
I don't know enough about him, but
you're a Boner guy,
yeah. Again, I don't know enough about either of them, so no, I'm keeping my options open at the moment.
Well, Dick or Boner, you're going to get one, G.
I'll go with Dick then.
Well, beggars can't be choosers, eh? It's gone to the play yard, hasn't it?
Yeah. No, I got to agree with most of what Gary says there. A lot rides on these ping pong balls on Tuesday night and the direction of how the off season goes, especially with our own pick. But keep who you can. I don't think there's anybody you want to actively get rid of. You might have to take a look at maybe Gary Harris, and is it worth keeping him for another season? Depends what's on the in the free agency, what people are asking for. But interestingly, we've also got the 36th pick, so you're not going to bring 3 rookies in. And you know what this front office is like? They normally just get rid of second round picks, just move them on to the next season. But the 36th pick, it's not too bad. It's very, very early in the second round, and they've hit a couple of times. They found a couple of diamonds in the rough in the second round. So I wonder if that Chicago picks, which is the 11th pick, they may try and, I don't know, shift that for somebody who can come in and contribute. Now, I don't know. I'm just going to throw out a name of somebody who might be able to come in. A name potentially like a DeMar DeRozan, who can come in and fit alongside, Fultz in the backcourt, who's obviously got a lot of experience, teach the guys, how to play. I know it doesn't work out salary-wise. So, I'm not even going down that route, but if you can think of I think that some team is going to be wanting to get in to the draft, and then players will become available. You've obviously got to look at what is out there. Like you said, Gary, you know, we're not going to be making the calls. We're going to be answering the calls. So having, you know, 2-3 rookies, it's not going to happen. So I think we'd make a move with one of the picks. And then obviously when it comes to free agency, hopefully Orlando's seen as a desirable place now that people want to come and play with, you know, Paolo and France and whoever else we get in the draft. And we're on the way up. How about you, Mikey?
When you were talking, just really quickly, when you were talking there about the second round pick, and I know Mikey said that's where Bono's meant to go. So if I was to say cash considerations for Bono, what would you say there?
You'd do it, wouldn't you?
I think anyone in their right mind would, wouldn't they?
I think it's a bit of a reach, though. He's projected to go 47 at the moment, according to Tankathon.
Okay.
Okay, so we finished 34 and 44? 48. 34 and 48 this season. Now, the Brooklyn Nets finished with 45 wins and ended up in the 6th seed. So if we're basing off of this season, the Magic need another 10, 11, 12 game improvement if we're looking at locking in a playoff spot, locking in a top 6 seed. Now,
don't forget to discount the last 4 games, though, because they shouldn't count.
True, but we're also basing it on, I mean, you could say the same about the first 25 games where we went 5 and 20, but season as a whole, now you're going to get injuries, you're going to get ups and downs, you're going to have parts of the season where you play really well and you're on a winning streak, and I want to know, what do you think we need to improve? So I know you've talked about like rough moves and what you potentially be looking for. How do the Magic go from the 13th seed to the 6th seed next season? How do they improve by another 12 games? Do you think we've got enough on this roster already with internal development and players improving? Because at the end of the day, this is still a really young team. You got Paolo's going to be entering his 2nd year. Franz is going to be in his 3rd year. You got Fultz, who's going to be 26 next season. Wendell, 24, 25. He's even younger.
Fultz will be 25 next year.
So this team's still really, really young. There's loads of room for improvement. Do you think on this roster there's enough there already that another good off-season and staying relatively healthy and getting off to a better start next year, do you think that's enough to get into the playoffs next year?
I do. You got to also consider the fact that they're going to have a full off-season. People like Jalen Suggs, who missed a lot of last year's off-season with recovering from an injury. Markelle missed the beginning part of the season with an injury. So getting them up to speed, and obviously you mentioned the poor start there. So for me, you're looking at, you know, what happened between December the 4th and, you know, April the 8th or whatever it was, as the season, so to speak. Obviously, you're going to have a couple of teams drop off. No, I think you run it back. Exactly the players we've got. There's a lot of, like you said, growth there to be had. We've got the number 1 pick last year, and he showed, you know, rookie of the year. He wants the ball in crunch time. He can create. He can, you know, he's the man. He's the man. And then you've got Franz Wagner, who, you know, a lot of people think is the best player on the team. I saw a couple of polls run on Twitter this week that, you know, who's the best player? Paolo, Franz, Markelle, or other. You know, I voted Fultz because me, innit? But back in man, innit? No, we've got a lot going for us, a lot going for us, and to have 2, you know, potentially top 11 picks, and a lot of money. I think you mentioned a couple of weeks ago, Mikey, that you listened to a podcast, and the chap who did the podcast, Zach Lowe, said we were in the best position out of any team. Give it contracts, give it how much money we're paying players, and draft capital. So I think we can make that jump. Maybe not quite to 6. I think you might be in the 7-8 range potentially. But maybe a free agent that could come in, fill another need, put us over. So no, very confident we could get to that, 6, 7, 8, definitely 8 slot for next year.
So there's 4 free agents on this team this summer. Mo Wagner being one of them. Goga Bitadze's got a team option. So's MCW. And so has Admiral Schofield. Who do you see coming back? And who do you think is likely to go?
Well, no Admiral, we riot. So that's my answer on that one. Again, Mikey, that's going back to our conversation earlier, but I think given the fact that we've got 2, potentially 3 draft picks coming in, I think Chuma could go. We talked about this earlier when we made the trades, and at one point Chuma was getting first look options for a run of games. He looked like somebody who could be a 3-and-D prospect for us. He looked like somebody who could be the 5th option as the starter, but giving you, the solid, what used to be the Robert Covington role. He looked like he could be a guy who could come off the bench and spark you with deep 3-and-D again. And then obviously injuries have struck. The team's moved on. Banchero, there's been a lot changed in that time when Chuma's had injuries. And I fear for Chuma's place, the most of the players who are there. And then after that, I don't know. I think there's a market for Gary Harris out there. And it's whether he's valued in the locker room, which I think he is. He's a solid NBA player. But again, if the phone rings and it's a contender and they're saying we want Gary Harris on our team and we're willing to give you draft capital or such down the road, maybe that's a call we listen to because of his value. I don't see Mo Wagner leaving because I think even if he wasn't a good player, which he is, even if he wasn't, the value of Franz, you've got a potential Giannis situation there where he's got a job on the Magic as long as Franz is here. So I think he's good. And then Goga did himself no harm, but we'll see what happens with the lottery balls. There's not many bigs in this draft, but who knows? If we win the first pick, changes everything.
Well, Bona's a centre from looking on Tankathon.
Well,
and I know you want him as well. So
things are looking up then, aren't
they? Like you said, Goga didn't do himself any favor. He did well end of the season. And Mo Wagner. I prefer Mo Wagner, I'd say, but it depends what else you can get. If we can get another backup, because I think you need somebody else. I don't think you could run it back with those 3. You just need a little bit more quality. So if it were me, I'd be keeping Mo Wagner. Goga was a free agent signing. We gave him a go. Did he light up the world? Is he capable of getting in and playing against, quality opposition, which, we hope to be playing against, deep in the postseason in years to come? Probably not. But I think Gary picked up on all the other guys quite well there, yeah.
More bonus for you, eh? There's loads of room in this to go. All I would say is, Mike, I know that you asked the previous question about the playoffs there, but I think what we've got to consider is not just how the Magic started and ended the season, but who I was looking when you were saying that at how the East shaped up. And I think we've got to look at decline of other teams and teams that the Magic might be naturally now better than. And Brooklyn blew it up. Mm-hmm. We should be better than Brooklyn as it stands right now. And then I look at it and I think, what are the Bulls going to do? They're stagnant. What are the Raptors going to do? Nurse is gone. There's talk that they may blow it up. I don't think, as it stands, without adding Wembanyama, that Indiana, Washington, or Charlotte are better than the Magic. Detroit, I think they're a threat when you add Cade Cunningham. I think they could get better quicker. But I'm looking like what was above us, and I think potentially you're looking at Toronto, you're looking at Chicago, you're looking at Brooklyn in particular, 3 teams there, and then Indiana and Washington both finished above us, but obviously didn't make the play. And 5 teams who the Magic actually might be better than right now. And yeah, okay, Miami's doing well, and Miami will kick on, but Miami are getting older.
Yeah. Yeah, the 4 core teams there are Boston, Philly, Milwaukee, and Cleveland, really, going forward, aren't they? All the others have got potential issues.
I still think it kind of does. I mean, it's kind of proved to Miami that it doesn't really matter where they finish. They don't seem like they're slowing down. I mean, they've been fantastic in the playoffs. They really have. I know we talked about it off air just before we jumped on that we haven't been able to watch a huge amount this week, but from the highlights and like the half an hour all possession highlights that I've been watching, Miami is a bigger threat as anybody in these last couple of rounds of the playoffs. I mean, if you look at it from a standings point of view, Milwaukee, Boston, Philly, Cleveland, yeah, New York, solid. Then I would put Miami in that bracket, in that top tier as well. You're looking at overtaking one of those teams, and I get the age thing, I do. New York, I think have got some questions. I think I think Miami have exposed their weaknesses, which is what teams do in the playoffs at the end of the day. But I think it's raised a few more question marks about Julius Randle. I don't think any of us really rate him that highly. I think Jalen Brunson is the player that they have to build around, and that's the sole focus. And they've got some really nice pieces. But can you see New York staying in that top 6 next year? I can't see them getting any better with what they've already got at the moment. There's a lot of good teams in front of them. For me, and I think you guys have kind of said this in a roundabout way, I think at the end of the day, we still need to keep getting better. The internal development has to happen. If that doesn't happen, then we're going to stagnate next year. I think anything less than making the play-in tournament is going to be a failure. If we get into the play-in tournament and don't make it into the playoffs next year, I don't think we should overreact to it. I think we're another year away from making a big splash or taking a big jump. It would be great to make another 10-12 game win improvement next year. I just don't want this front office to rush into thinking we need to win now. Because I think everything's got to happen naturally. You got to think like Coach Mosley. He's still developing as a coach and understanding different situations. And as this team gets better and learning to close games out, he's going to learn what sort of rotations work and all that sort of thing as well. But I don't want them to make a decision where, and I know we talked about Donovan Mitchell to Cleveland, and I still think it was the right move for them. But if that scenario appeared for us this offseason, would it hamper, a bit like in Minnesota, making that move? Does it hamper your future flexibility by jumping on a deal like now? Do you know what I mean? When Paolo's only entering his second year, I just think we've still got to have a long-term approach to whatever we do this off-season. And Gary said it at the top, I don't think we have to rush into anything. If the Magic just go into this off-season and just pick 2 really good players in the draft and roll everybody back and hope everybody gets better, then you could argue, providing they do what they've done the last few years and draft well, the Magic are better than they were last year as well. personally, and I agree with what me and Gary already talked about earlier, I don't think Tuma's coming back next year. I think his spot is one of the upcoming draft picks spot. I think you could probably say the same for MCW, who I know was brought in at the last minute just to fill one of those last roster spots. But I think those two spots are gone. Bol, I think it's a big off season. I think if he doesn't take a jump this year, he's going to be a bit like RJ Hampton was last year, getting pushed out because he's not his development's not keeping up with how good everybody else is and how fast everybody else is improving. Somebody may come in with an offer that the Magic go, yeah, we'll take that, and maybe they want to swap somebody out like that for a vet who becomes more valuable in different games and different situations this year. I think if the Magic just get better through the draft this summer, then I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that. I think if there's a big name this off season, let's say Luka's name was, and I'm not saying it is or is even going to happen, but let's say Luka's name was on the table this summer, I would still really be hesitant about making any move for somebody like that, because that changes the dynamic of where you're going completely. And I just think it's too early to make those decisions. I think let's give it another year and see how far Franz's improvement takes him, and the same with Paolo, and then just let the chips fall wherever they are really, and see where it takes us, because Cole's going to be coming into contract extension talks, I think, is that this off season. To me, it's a no-brainer. You give the kid the money; he's earned it. He's carved out a role as that sixth man, and although he wants more, I think he gets rewarded, and rightly so. I don't really see us making any splashy moves, if I'm honest. I think it's going to be a quiet off-season.
Yeah, and I mean, you just mentioned about splashy moves there. You just look at the Phoenix Suns, who just got bounced out of the playoffs last night to the Denver Nuggets. You know, they pushed all their chips in on Kevin Durant, didn't they? I know Kevin Durant's a fantastic player, but you know, had they kept Bridges and all the other assets they had, would they have got any further?
That's a team that's worth watching where this goes, because, as you say, chips are all in. I know we spoke a bit off air before the pod, but it's another things aren't going well. Sorry to say this, but Chris Paul's injured. When the chips are down, he's injured. How much has he got left? Well, they started to look better when he was out the lineup. And then we saw, DeAndre Ayton with that situation where Booker and Durant seemed to be telling him where to stand and what he should be doing. And he walked out the huddle. And that's the guy who, not being awful, but looks like he was falling apart. Like ESPN is saying he missed the game with bruised ribs in the game that they could get bounced, the number one pick. You know, like, yeah, okay, it could be a bad bruise, but this is the number one pick. This is a guy who averaged 20 and 10 during the season, and he isn't there. And he's being, like, as most players would, he's being destroyed by Jokic in this. But when you look at some of the players, you're standing there and you're going, how much longer is DeAndre Ayton for the Phoenix Suns? And what can a guy who was the number one pick actually fetch? Because when he was drafted, you must have been thinking, if you were a Suns fan, he'd be the third best center in the league when you look at his physical tools, and he's a 20 and 10 guy. And he isn't. He really isn't. And people's linking him with, I saw a few, I'm not saying they're legit, but where he would fit on the Oklahoma Thunder, because they've got the draft capital and the cap space to do it. And you've got to wonder what Phoenix are going to do here, because G said chips all in on Durant, bounced out. They haven't even made the Western Finals, and it was easy that last night. That was easy. So
it's more examples of how important the draft is. Because if you remember back to, what was it, the NBA bubble, and the Suns went into that And didn't they have to win? Didn't they
Every
win?
game.
Was it
Every
all
game.
7 games that they played in
Yeah.
the bubble, and they still didn't make the postseason? Now, fair enough, they didn't make the postseason, but they actually pushed on the following year, and obviously they made the finals a couple of years ago. That, I mean, you think what a turnaround that was. I mean, they were 2-0 up against the Bucks and lost 4-2. But just think how close they were to. Imagine what would happen. Imagine the trajectory of that team. It's a bit like the Magic. You think of like 95, 2009. If you think about the way those games went and those series went,
Yeah.
how different things would have been. Like imagine if the Magic had won the 95 finals. Shaq wouldn't have left. The Magic would have had one on the board. How many more would they have won? He wouldn't have gone to the Lakers. Do you know what I mean? There's all these things that play out. I mean, you think back to the Suns. They lost in the bubble. They had the number 1 pick. They turned down drafting Luka Doncic. They turned down the option of having Doncic and Devin Booker as a backcourt. Just think about that. Like, that's madness. And then, yes, they made the trade for CP3, who helped push them to the finals. And now they're all in, like you said, on the Kevin Durant move. And I think it was the right move to make. They had no choice because they weren't going to compete this season without making a move like that, as they were, I don't think, before the trade deadline. You think about the Warriors, like you were talking about, Gary, about how, like last season, people were talking about Wiseman, Kuminga, Moody, all these young players, Jordan Poole being like the face of the future. Let's not forget they decided to draft James Wiseman and passed up on LaMelo Ball, who's a much, much better player. They could have added LaMelo Ball into the mix. You think last season, or Tyrese Halliburton. Last season they passed up Franz Wagner and went for Kuminga. So you think how much better the Warriors could have been had they had made their picks a little bit differently as well.
Here's one, Mike. What you were saying there as well. We talk of the NBA now and say how the league's changed. When it was the 90s, it was Shaq, Robinson, Ewan, Hakeem, Mutombo. You had to build from the inside out. And we're hearing about this is the era of the wing, the guard, that type of thing. But you're potentially looking at an NBA Finals, potentially, when you look at your Final Four, where you've got Joel Embiid, Bam Adebayo, both all-star bigs in the East, and in the West, you're looking at Jokic running through Phoenix. He's destroyed Phoenix. The Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, he's been the difference maker, and he's not surrounded by. It's not like a multiple all-star lineup there. It's Jokic's team, which is built around him. And then the difference in that Golden State series is going to be whether Anthony Davis is fit or not, who is another big. So for all the talk of it being a wings league, it's bizarre, really.
Yeah, absolutely right, mate. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, but yeah, I just don't think if a deal becomes available, then obviously you have to explore these things. But I'm just hesitant about the Magic making a big move this offseason. I just don't think they need to. I don't think they're ready to make that decision just yet. Yes, you could look at it from a short-term point of view, like Donovan Mitchell going to Cleveland. Did they improve last season massively? Yes, but it didn't work in the playoffs. Let's say somebody else comes available and the Magic do make a 10-game win improvement next year and get to that. But you look at somebody like we've talked about Trae Young as an option. Now, I'm not a Trae Young fan. I don't think you guys really are either, or his antics. But if you make a move for somebody like that, I mean, you look at the money that these guys are earning, suddenly your cap space gets eaten up, your flexibility disappears, and you're kind of stuck with what you've got. I mean, you think last season Atlanta made the move for DeJounte Murray. Well, they're locked in on that team now, and now they've not got a lot of flexibility about what they can do next. They gave up a load of draft capital for him. And whilst we've got all these players on rookie deals, it just roll it back again this season. I think, like I said, if they replace a couple of players like Chuma, and we all like Chuma, I don't think we want him to go, but he's not improved enough. He's been too injury prone. He's not seen the floor enough. I think if you improve through the draft and improve the depth of this roster, and personally, I would like to see us bring in a better backup big, because I don't think you can rely on Wendell playing 70, 75 games in a season, unless that changes this year. But I think if they can bring in somebody who's much more reliable to come off the bench, I said it a few weeks back, I think Batadze's really good. I think Mo Wagner's really good. But I think if you're a playoff team, I think they're third string centres. And that's just where I look at it. I think you want somebody who comes off the bench and has got that shot blocking ability, and can man the paint a little bit. Somebody that's different from Wendell. You want that, like the Warriors, like we talked about, that you've got Kevon Looney, who just clogs the paint, rebounds the ball, gets second chance points. But then you got somebody like Draymond, who's much more about making the right pass, spreading the floor when he can, and bringing the team together. I think you want somebody who's a little bit different to Wendell playing that backup role, personally. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But like I said, it all hinges on Tuesday night's draft lottery. So let's do a quick Tankathon spin. Last one before Tuesday night. And the Orlando Magic end up with number 8. And the Chicago Bulls pick lands at number 12. So 8 and 12. I wouldn't be surprised if that's roughly where we are. But we'll see. Yeah. I didn't tell you who they were going to pick. That's because I didn't do it. I pressed the wrong one.
Probably be Anthony Black or Cam Whitmore or somebody.
That is correct. Anthony Black from Arkansas, as Paul says.
Oh, gosh, you've done it now. Oh, you did it on purpose. That's okay.
You won't be able to see that, but I've just done a 1. And the Bulls picked Conveys at 11. And the Magic drafted number 2. Scoot Henderson as Markel's packing his bags. Just joking. Just joking.
Oh, I don't know. Right, so quick playoff update. So last night, the Denver Nuggets defeated the Phoenix Suns 4-2. So they are the first team to advance to the conference finals. They're awaiting the winners of the Warriors or Lakers. The Lakers are currently 3-2 up, and they play tonight, I think, boys, don't they? For Game 6. So let's hope the Warriors can push it to Game 7. I think the Lakers are in trouble if it goes to Game 7.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, likewise in the East, if the Knicks force a Game 7 against the Heat, I know you can come to that in a second, I think the Heat would be in trouble. And boy, what a postseason would be to watch Miami and the LA Lakers blow a 3-1 lead. Oh, we'll have so much fun next year.
But I think with the Lakers one, though, G, I think it all depends on whether Ironside's going to play in the game.
He's still in his wheelchair.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. That was quite funny to watch, wasn't it? Shaq and Chuck chuckling away on inside, mocking Anthony Davis for getting a little knock to the head and then apparently being wheeled off in a wheelchair.
Where do you see you guys, Boston and Philly, going?
Honestly, my head says Boston.
I think Philly blew their chance last night.
Yeah.
I think it was, a tie game going into the fourth quarter, and they get beat by 9-10. And Jason Tatum, doing what Jason Tatum does, and he's a fantastic player. But if they lose, what does that mean for Jaylen Brown next year? Could that potentially be his last game? When they play Game 7 now, I think it might be tomorrow, in a Boston uniform.
Do you?
Hopefully,
I don't.
yeah. No.
Nah.
Well, indications are he doesn't want to be there. So
I'm sure if he gets paid nicely, he won't mind staying there.
no, that's true. That's true.
But then again,
but look how successful they've been over the last 5 years. The trips to the NBA Finals, Conference Finals. They're one win away from another Conference Finals appearance.
No championships.
I mean, this is part of the reason why I thought at the beginning of the season that the change in coaching with Ime Udoka getting fired and replacing him, I thought that was like a key thing for them in the off season. I mean, I still think they're good enough to win it. I honestly do. But yeah, it's finely balanced, isn't it, at 3-3. I think you're right, G. I think the Sixers blew their chance last night. I mean, that Game 5, they were superb. I mean, every answer Boston were coming back with, Philly just went and smashed another 3 down their throat. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and whoever wins that, I think they'll steamroll either the Knicks or the Heat. So Celtics or yeah, I do.
I don't. I think you've massively underestimated Miami.
Nah, they're washed.
I think you see that. Genuinely, I think you see that 8 seed next to them and think, yeah, they're not what they were. Mate, I really do. I really think we're underestimating Miami.
Me. Butler's not. He's not 100%.
But he's been hurt all the playoffs, and he had a historic game. What was it? Game 1, Game 2 in the Knicks series. He had 50-something points and was just unbelievable.
I tell you, it was fun to see the Miami fans having to go with the officials because of the 8-second rule. Did you see that? All over Twitter. The referees did blow an 8-second call right down the stretch with a minute to go. And yeah, Heat Nation were in meltdown.
I mean, it's just karma, really, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? It is.
They've had all the decision like that go against us earlier in the year when we had that terrible officiating game against Miami earlier in the season. But I'm not going to be surprised if we see Miami, Boston, and the Lakers in the conference finals. It makes me feel sick thinking about it, but
we'll get our Denver Nuggets jerseys on then, shall we? Or our AG.
We'll all wear AG jerseys next week, shall we?
We've all got them.
We've all got them.
We have it.
I just think when you were talking about the potential of a Miami in the Eastern Finals, I wouldn't fancy Doc Rivers against Eric Spoelstra in a coaching matchup. That for me would be the key difference in that series. What Doc because if they don't go through, he's done. Yeah. If they don't go through, he's done. So we can talk about Brown, but I think if the Sixers don't make the Eastern Finals, I think Doc's done.
I don't think he's got a very good record either in clinching games in Eastern semi-finals. I think he's like 0 of 9 of his last 9.
Well, there's major question. Like a guy who's a title-winning coach who did a good job in Orlando, I think. Since then, really, when you look at the Clippers and such, his legacy's pretty tarnished when you consider, people now say who won that title for him in Boston. It's question marks against Doc. And I don't dislike Doc Rivers as it goes, but I think he could be a guy who could be another coaching casualty. And, we've already said about Nick Nurse. Could he end up in Milwaukee? Could he end up in Philly?
Yeah, possible.
It's a great point there, Gary. I think you could say the same about Joe Mazzulla going up against Spo as well. I think that could really be a big difference if either of those face them in the conference finals.
He's the difference. He is the difference. Spoelstra's, for me, is the difference because we said it on a previous pod, but I think he's the reason Jimmy Butler is as he is in Miami.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. Who was the last 8 seed to make the NBA Finals?
Probably the Knicks in '99. And during that run, I think they beat the Heat, who were the first seed. unless I'm mistaken.
And I believe in
there might have been
95,
one since.
Well, the Rockets, the 8th seed in 95. They were pretty low.
They were pretty low. You're right.
I always remember the commentary saying about never underestimate the heart of a champion as they bounced us out.
They were the 6th seed.
Things that are burned into your 15-year-old brain.
Yeah.
Let's just have a look.
Yeah, it was the Knicks, 1999.
99, yeah.
It was a lockout shortened season, though, 50 games. My second year watching the NBA. That's how I remember it. The San Antonio Spurs, I think they beat them 4-1.
Yeah, that was the year. That was in '95. I remember that was the year San Antonio were like 62 wins or something, and Robinson had like a monster season. And then I think did Denver bounce them in the first round or something?
I can't remember if it was Denver or maybe Houston.
Yeah, somebody. They went through a phase before they got Tim Duncan where they were just getting bounced, despite being a great regular season team.
Yeah. Well, let's go Knicks, Warriors, and Sixers, eh?
We'll see. We will see. Well, anything else, boys, you want to touch on before we jump off?
I don't think so, mate.
Well,
good luck to good luck to Sunderland tomorrow in the Championship playoff. Gary's rocking his Black Cats jersey there. So, how are the lads?
How are the lads? If we can bump Luton and then see if we end up with possibly Middlesbrough at Wembley.
Yeah, we're rooting for you, mate.
Thank you. Hopefully I'm smiling tomorrow night, but we've got a lot of injuries. That's all I'm going to say. A lot. So
you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I'll do my usual. Go for a seafront walk and just rock up.
Good man.
Cheers, lads.
We'll catch up on Tuesday for the NBA draft watch party. Thank you as always for listening and watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel, Orlando Magic UK. For Orlando Magic merchandise, make sure you visit the NBA Store EU or Fanatics UK using our affiliate links. Make sure you also use the affiliate code Magic UK 10 for 10% off your entire order. Please make sure you like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and subscribe to us on YouTube. So from Gary, Geraint, and myself, until next week, go Magic.